Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people who are making the lives of others better, locally, globally, and digitally. We're part of Rotary International, 1.2 million people around the world, 36,000 clubs dedicated to service above self. This idea that spending your time on a regular basis with others in order to improve your communities, as we see it, is a pretty darn good way to live. And we hope that you will take an interest in learning more about Rotary. If you are not already a member, you can do so at rotary.org, Rotary at or .org. You can learn more about our club at rotary.cool. Our particular club can be found that way, and we're kind of proud of that. So with that, I am excited for us to spend some time today highlighting an excellent project that's happening with another Rotary Club. I do believe that great projects are the kinds of projects that should be discussed by clubs everywhere. Is that something we should do? Is that a need in our community? And I think when we talk with Pam this morning, we're going to learn a lot about how that works in her club. Our speaker is Pam Hunter. She is with the Rotary Club of Natomas. And Pam, what an honor to have you with us. I hand the mic over to you.
Thank you, Rushton. It's a pleasure, and I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share our story. The story is actually what we're going to get as opposed to a presentation. You'll see on the screen, my opening is sometimes dreams are wiser than waking. I'm going to get back to that, circle back in a minute. So, the power of asking questions. In fact, one of my favorite books is The Power of Asking the Right Questions. And the story starts off with just the power of asking questions, not just of other people, but most importantly, of yourself. So, the backstory. A couple of years ago, we're in Sacramento and we have trees. We have a lot of trees, beautiful, but sometimes a bit concerning when the weather gets the way it got. February of year before last, the storms came and it seemed like they were not going to stop. I live in a mid-century modern home. We've got 4 skylights and a ton of glass. So this particular night, I was concerned what was happening out there. So just before going to bed, I got my phone and I decided to go on the Nextdoor app to see what was going on in my neighborhood. Well, turns out a particular post, not about the weather, but it was kind of weather related, got my attention. It was from a young lady who I later got to meet, who very humbly was sharing because of the weather. She was asking for things that I thought kind of basic. She needed a blanket. She was asking for a tarp. And what got me was that I was concerned about what was possibly going to go on, in my neighborhood, in my house. What if the trees fall? Because that's what was happening. But here was a family who was experiencing the same storm, but they were out in it. It got me. I sat up in my bed and I asked out loud, although I was by myself, what can I do? And initially it was like, darn, it's just me. And it's a big thing. But after the third time, what can I do came out. That was the power of the question. What can I do? It turned from kind of this is too big to I can do something. So I went to sleep on it. Well, the next morning, the answer came. Well, the day before, I had just gone to a home show, and one of my favorite retailers, Home Depot, had this huge display And they had those beautiful orange buckets piled up seemingly to the sky. I thought, hey, those buckets are kind of sturdy. You can sit on them, you can put things in them, and you can carry them. So I set off to Home Depot, got a bucket, went to the aisles, saw what I could pick up: tarp, tape, a couple of things, some gloves. And then I thought, there's got to be some more things. Well, in Natomas, Walmart's right down in the same complex. Went to Wally Mart, picked up some things from the camping department. And I thought, there's more room in here. So came home and got on Mr. Amazon, got a couple of other things. So before the week was over, I made contact with the young family and said, I'd like to bring you some things, but I hope it's okay. They're in a bucket. Well, when I went out to meet them, and it was like they were excited to get this thing, and it was just a bucket full of stuff. Well, that was the beginning. Anyone in Rotary may know what Pearls is. Last year, I was president-elect, and Pearls is President-elect Leadership Training. So I signed up thinking, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to get into next year becoming president, but I'm going to take this program. It was a 2-day program. Question was asked of me: what would you like to bring to your club as a service project for next year? And I told my group what I had done, and I said, I'm not sure if the club would think of this as a service project, but every year we've been doing backpacks for unhoused youth. This is kind of similar. Well, another president-elect named the concept the bucket of hope. So from there, another question came up. As you mentioned, service project. One of our members ran a pretty substantial nonprofit, and I thought, let me get her input. Let me see what she thinks about it. So that was the first trial balloon, so to speak. I called up Sister Jean and said, I'm going to pick you up for lunch and run something by you. Well, after I shared it with her, she beamed and she said, I love it. A couple of weeks later, I presented it to my club, and not only did they decide to do it, but they also decided to make it our project for the year. We also requested grants under the impact pillar. Some of the stipulations were we needed to involve community, we needed to make an impact, and it needed to have a humanitarian focus. Well, we thought it did, and obviously the grant committee did as well, because we were given a grant. I'd like to show you what that looks like and how it kind of transferred or translated. This is a picture in terms of getting the community involved. What we decided to do was to make our buckets, the tops, personalized. And so we enlisted the support. The lady on the left runs an organization that we do some service projects with, the Greenhouse. And the lady who's beaming happens to be the chief of staff of one of our council members. We came together, invited community members to come and help us paint the buckets. We called it Paint for Hope. This is a picture. We had kids come. They had a ball and did a beautiful job. On the lady that's smiling, hopefully will be our PE next year. Here is a picture of our last packing party. And here's some of our club members. In fact, all of us showed up except for our 93-year-old and our 83-year-old, understandably. You can see if you look, the tops of the buckets are painted. Here we go at our last packing party. In total, we put together 310 buckets, most of which were donated by Home Depot. The buckets contain 52 items, some of which were donated by in-kind partners. And here's a glimpse at where they went. Here's a glimpse at some of the recipients. And this possibly is my closing, but we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Our little club is 12 members, which may have helped us pull this together because we all are on deck and participate. And this was the largest project that we've done. At last week's meeting, the club decided, let's do it again.
Fantastic, Pam. I love it. So let's do this. Let's transition our way to Q&A. I'm going to have you stop sharing there so I can
Okay.
introduce our small group today. And I am excited for people to hear hear this story of yours, that this opportunity is there for your community as a result of the work of your club. Very, very cool stuff. From our club, we have Rory Olson in Houston. I'm in the Bay Area here in California, and Pam, you are of course in the Sacramento area. So let's start with this. One of the things that I love about this story is that you have this project that came as a result of just a moment that you experienced. You were in a setting in which you were able to say, hey, this is a possibility. And your club, upon hearing the idea, bought into it. So we're talking about this thing that you mentioned earlier, the power of asking questions. And the idea that you would take it to the club as a possibility, as a question, rather than a statement, seems to me to be part of the success with this. Can you talk a little bit about how the conversation went with your club members about putting this together and making this a focus of what your club is doing?
Well, I don't think Sacramento is much different than a lot of large cities. Is we can't go too far without seeing someone who is unhoused. And so the subject is comes up often. In my ask, I put together a presentation, gave some statistics, and perhaps humanized. And I think the club bought in as I did. We can't fix the problem, but we can certainly do something to impact and have something that had a humanitarian effect. And from that aspect, the club bought in.
Well, I think that having an open conversation about the things that are important to the club and really zeroing in on, okay, there are larger questions about how the society should properly address the needs of those who are unhoused, but zeroing in on what it is you can do seems to me to be a very healthy way of thinking about what a club should be.
Yeah.
Has this become part of the story that your members tell others when they're talking about their experiences with the club?
I think so. It's an example. I mean, again, we're 12 members, but we're very active. And this is the most recent project, but we have been involved in others. And it does help us to have a story to share with other people. And it has gotten the attention of our mayor, of our council people, and certainly I didn't mention that what we did was we put together the buckets and enlisted our community members to help. But the power was we were able to partner with 7 organizations here locally. We've made friends with them, and they have shared that they're now supporting and will support our efforts. One of them has 300 employees, and the other two are the go-to organizations when someone calls 211 and needs resources. So those are, I say, friends in high places, but they were the ones who were the recipients to get them in the hands of those that needed them.
That element of partnerships is one that we often focus on in our recordings. They're talking about what it means to have people think in terms of reaching out to the manager at Home Depot. Hey, we got this project going on. Turns out that they are equipped to help,
Right.
not simply in the products that they have in the store, but in the way that they are designed to be good stewards of their place in the community. So I love I love that the kudos to the Home Depot is a part of the story. You know,
Right.
that reminder to anyone hearing the story that there are good people and good companies out there
Mhm.
that take seriously what it means to help others.
Right.
Can you tell a little bit about the conversation with the people at Home Depot? How did they move from just being this store selling you something to saying, hey, we can actually give you a bunch of buckets as well?
It was magical, honestly. Again, a question. I approached our local store manager. Turns out the gentleman who I spoke to, once I shared with him what we were going to be doing, instantly picked up his walkie talkie and requested that someone bring out 100 buckets. That someone who brought them out, as I shared with him, he was also a manager, pulled me aside and said, I've been 8 years sober, and I was out there on such and such. He told me where he was when he was unhoused. And then the lady who checked me out shared her story. So it was like it was like I said, magical, because they got it because they had been through some things. So that was one store. I asked him, who else do you know? Well, he called someone that he trained at another store. She called me and said, I've got 150 buckets for you. And then the third one was just because I was working on a property. I was spending money at that Home Depot. And I shared with him what the other 2 stores had done. And he got on his walkie talkie and got some buckets.
This is another element of the power of the quote you have about the power of asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So many people who are involved in service groups, Rotary, Kiwanis, Optimus, Lions, and there's a bunch of great ones out there,
Yeah.
don't know that you can ask,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you obviously have to know to what degree you can represent your club. That's important, and that's stuff we should all train, each other on.
Mm-hmm.
But I can imagine in a club just having those moments of role playing, say, we're filling up these buckets. You may know somebody at a store. Do you know how to ask? And well, let's give it a shot real quick, just here in our club.
Mhm.
spending time in the meeting doing that kind of thing can be
Mhm.
really, really good for moving members from being passive to active Rotarians, would you say?
Yeah, we do that.
Fantastic. The story for me is as much about the moment of what happens for someone in need
Mhm.
who has someone walk up and say, I can help. I have something for you. I'll, do you have this need? That kind of thing. As it is about training people to be people who think in terms of the needs of others,
Mhm.
which I think is kind of a really exciting piece of it. Tell us a little bit about your experience becoming part of Rotary. There's this very interesting finish to your bio where you say her only Rotarian regret is that she didn't join Rotary sooner, right? And
Yeah.
and could you talk a little bit about that? What was it that was the moment that got you involved?
So Rotary was introduced to me years ago in the wrong way. And by what I mean is, busy people don't want another meeting. And it was introduced to me as another meeting. So, of course, no, I don't want another meeting. Well, fast forward, um, you met Salvador. Salvador and I became friends through a business event. And as we got to know each other, he kept saying, You got the heart of a Rotarian. And after so many times of hearing that, I thought, well, let me go see what this Rotary stuff is all about, right? I went, I liked the group, but I'll tell you what hooked me is the first Rotary magazine. As I read it and saw the things that Rotarians were doing all over, I was hooked totally.
The
So,
the start of your presentation, you said this will be more of a story than a presentation.
mhm.
And the story is why this is a good presentation. It's what got you into Rotary. And I think it's what allows people who are in a service club of any sort find to be that which keeps them in, right? That sense that, hey, I am a part of something. And one truly is, right, in an organization like Rotary.
Mhm.
You read that magazine, you find out the kind of things that are happening all over the world, right?
Mhm.
Our club is very much built on the idea that the story is not just a powerful way of balancing out like all of the doom of the news. I mean,
Mhm.
it's also something we need.
Yeah.
Like we need the stories of goodness that are out there. I don't mean just the nice moments. I mean, where people are going to some trouble. They're getting together. They're sharing ideas. They're grappling with logistics to make things happen.
Yeah.
For you, is there a start to how the story became a part of how you chose to become a leader in the club? Like how did it work that you became a leader in your Rotary Club?
We're so small. So most of the club has been president before. And although I just was in the club 3 years, I thought, okay, my turn. And they did too, obviously.
Nice. The hope that we have is that the conversation we're having right now will be another tool that you use in your community to say, hey, we recorded a story about this project that we do. I'd be interested in your feedback, right? And of course, if someone is watching this as a result of someone saying, I'd be interested in your feedback, that's a bit meta, but all good, all good, all good. I would love to to see lots of Rotary clubs get into that mode where they say, we're going to ask a question of the group, right? We're gonna kind of actively talk about what might be the right path for us in terms of a project. This is that active piece of being people who serve, of finding out about needs in the community.
Mhm.
You can imagine, again, power of questions, starting a meeting of any kind of group, online, traditional, in person, whatever it might be, where it's sort of like, okay, guys, at your tables, what's one need in the community you noticed in the last week?
Mhm.
And there's something about a small club
Yeah.
that simplifies how those conversations kick into gear.
Right. Yeah.
So let's wind some things down here. What I want to do is I want to get back to kind of your central message, right?
Mhm.
But before I do, one final question for you. Uh, you are a Rotarian of several years. I think Salvador is right. You absolutely have the heart of a Rotarian, right? And for people out there who are not part of Rotary, what is the message that you give them that allows them to understand what Rotary clubs are about?
Ooh, working through this project, whether it was talking to the checker or a manager or really people on Nextdoor. We shared it on Nextdoor, neighbors, everybody wanted to help in some way. In fact, one of our members who moved out of the area donated 150 rolls of toilet tissue from his company. I think people innately want to help. They want to give. Rotary gives people the opportunity. Truly, I see Rotary as an opportunity because it allows people to do just that, to make a difference in the lives of others, whether it's a small project like this or some of the huge projects that we read about in the magazine. It serves a need for not only those we serve, but for us as individuals as well. It's a gift.
Beautifully said. I sometimes I think we don't spend enough time talking about the power of smaller projects
Mhm.
for activating people to think, boldly about the larger things we can do.
Yeah.
Well, I could kind of geek out on this kind of service talk all day, but with time winding down, what I'll do is I'll do the wind down and then hand it back to you for the final word.
Right.
Everyone who has been watching this recording or listening to the podcast, we thank you for taking your time to tap in to the energy that comes from the stories of good that people are doing to improve the lives of others near and far. We believe that there is something about innovative service and entrepreneurship and the power of conversations and questions and engaging your neighbors in really powerful ways that allow you to tap into some of the very best pieces of who you are. We hope that again, you'll take a look at Rotary.org. If you are a person with a crazy busy schedule and you need something highly flexible, take a look at Rotary.cool. That'll get you to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley and the work we do to give a platform to the stories of those who are doing good all over the world. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. Pam, what would you like people to have in mind as they finish the video or the podcast?
Going back to the initial slide, challenge yourself, ask those questions, and then listen for the answer, and then act on it.
I love it. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.
Thank you.